You can't believe how wicked these people are to play games with your lives and the lives of your babies. Create a war just to get more money, to charge more interest, and send your babies to die for bullshit. What is the root of the problem? How did America get into this condition? You know, the president just sent a budget up to Congress of $1.6 trillion. Yet, in 1991, the last year that we have knowledge of what America took in taxes, America took in a little over $1 trillion in taxes, which means that if the budget this year or next year is going to be $1.6 trillion, then where will the $600 billion come from to satisfy the budget? At this rate, if America cuts taxes and yet is increasing its budget, by the time Clinton leaves office, if he only has one term, the country will be $6 trillion in debt. At $4 trillion in debt, to pay the interest on that debt in 1991 was $288 billion, nearly 1/3 of what the government took in taxes. If the debt reaches $6 trillion, practically every penny that comes in tax revenue will have to be paid to service the debt, which technically means that the country will be bankrupt. This condition of great debt has placed America at the mercy of those to whom she is indebted. On page 47 of this same book, They Dare Call It Conspiracy, by Gary Allen and Mr. Abraham, it reads, listen, quote, since the Keystone.
Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're fine wherever you are today. This is Representative Jindok Stories, and I hope that you are okay. Now, Minister Louis Farrakhan, for the longest time, he has been an advocate and talking for a lot of things that are happening in the United States. And I believe that most of the things that he says are worth of discussion. And in today's video, he says something spectacular, something that I want us to talk about, something really, really important. And what's that? Minister Louis Farrakhan allegedly claims that the United States government creates war to make money, which generally highlights the systemic flaws of the United States and foreign policy that prioritize profit and power over human rights and global stability. By embedding war making into economic and political fabric, the U.S. perpetuates hegemony and oligarchy. This, the oligarchy is a society or a country that is being controlled by a few group of people who control a number of things. Some of them call them the elites. Yes, they make the decision of a number of things which happen to you. And hegemony and oligarchy are two things which are really happening in the United States. And when I heard him say about this, it is for the suffering that people in the United States have gone through, the economic struggles, when the country itself is taking a lot of money, funding different wars which are happening around the world, And his political stance in regards to what the United States is doing, I think is something that it's really, really important, that I feel like we need to, have a discussion about it, because for the longest time, the economic situations which are happening in the United States today, it's going haywire. And this is something that I feel like he's talking about it at the right time. And I think this video might be a video that was done like a few years ago, but look at how relevant it is and how it describes the nature of the United States. And how Minister Louis Farrakhan himself says that the government doesn't care about you. Rather, it cares for the money that you gave it because it is from the taxes that you pay, right? Because there is an increase in taxes. And even today, as we are talking, this is a matter of discussion. Just recently, the new government, Mr. Donald Trump, wants to add tariffs on a lot of businesses, all goods and services which are imported outside the United States. And you understand this is going to increase high taxes on this, and this is going to be passed on the consumer. And what that does mean, that means that there is what is called imported inflation, because at the end of the day, people will need this product and they gotta have it, while the country itself is still taking a lot of money, funding a lot of wars, entering into different interference of different countries. And this is something at the right time that I think Minister Louis Farrakhan talked about it a long time ago. And that right now, it is really, really important that he addresses it. Hey, I want you to buckle up for this video. Prepare yourself. If you got some popcorns, if you got some crepes, you might want to watch this video. I'm here with you. I'm ready. And I want us to watch this video. I'll be back. I'm going to be giving my 2 cents in regards to this. Kindly watch the video. If you're watching this video for the first time, I'll most definitely ask you to subscribe to our channel, join our membership, like the video, and if you wish to buy me a coffee, you can check out my Cash App account on my bio. Until then, let's dive right to the video. I'll be back with my commentary. As you know, this is your Eugene Stories, bringing you fresh content and something that you wanna think deeply about it, because these are things that are affecting the community and everyone has to watch this. Until then, let's get it.
Of the international banking empire has been government bonds. It has been in the interest of these international bankers to encourage government debt. The higher the debt, the more the interest. And nothing drives governments into debt like a war. And it has not been an uncommon practice among international bankers to finance both sides of the bloodiest military conflicts. For example, during the Civil War, the American North was financed by Rothschild through their American agent, August Belmont. And the American South was financed through the Erlangers, who were Rothschild's relatives. But while wars and revolutions have been used by international bankers in gaining or increasing control over governments, the key to such control has always been control of money. You can control a government if you have that government in your debt. A creditor is in a position to demand the privileges of monopoly from the sovereign. Oh man, this is heavy stuff. Governments that are seeking money have granted monopolies in state banking, natural resources, oil concessions, and transportation to the bankers. However, the monopoly which the international financiers most covet is to gain control over a nation's money. Eventually, these international bankers actually owned as private corporations the central bank of various European nations. The Bank of England, the Bank of France, the Bank of Germany were not owned by their respective governments, as almost everyone imagined. They were privately owned monopolies granted by the head of state, usually in return for loans under this system, observed Reginald McKenna, president of the Midlands Bank of England. He said, quote, "Those that create and issue the money and credit direct the policies of government and hold in their hands the destiny of the people."
Go ahead, Minister, go ahead.
Now, most of you think, most Americans think that the Federal Reserve banking system is owned by the federal government as the representatives of the American people. But the Federal Reserve Bank is a privately owned banking institution. On page 59 of this same book, it reads, "The Federal Reserve controls our money supply and interest rates and thereby manipulates the entire economy, creating inflation or deflation, recession or boom, sending the stock market up or down at whim. The Federal Reserve is so powerful that the former Congressman Wright Patman, who was the former chairman of the House Banking Committee, said, in the United States, we have in effect two governments. We have the duly constituted government. Then we have an independent, uncontrolled, uncoordinated government in the Federal Reserve System, operating the money powers which are reserved to Congress by the Constitution. Neither presidents, nor congressmen, nor secretaries of the Treasury direct the Federal Reserve. In the matters of money, the Federal Reserve directs them." This was written about 30 years ago. Well, is it so today? Recently, the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board, Mr. Alan Greenspan, came before Congress to hint to the Congress that the Fed would raise interest rates again. So for the 7th time in a year, interest rates have been raised. The chairman of the board of General Motors and Ford is now seeking an audience with Mr. Greenspan to plead with him not to raise the interest rates any further. And if Mr. Greenspan agrees, this will be the first time, according to what we have read, that the Federal Reserve has agreed to sit down directly with the heads of business. The Federal Reserve sits down with the heads of government.
Go ahead, Minister, go ahead.
Why would business plead to the Federal Reserve not to raise interest rates? Why couldn't Congress order the Federal Reserve not to raise the interest rates? If you watch Congress, when they deal with Mr. Greenspan, they don't play with him, because Mr. Greenspan is the representative of a shadow government that literally dictates the monetary policies of this nation. Now, do you remember a few weeks ago when the Mexican peso was in trouble? Against the wishes of the American people and the Congress, President Clinton ordered $20 billion of the American taxpayers' money to be used to bail out the peso.
Think about it.
But who was President Clinton helping? Was he acting on his own? Or was he being directed by powerful forces that the American people don't know anything about? According to what we have read, the bailout don't save the common Mexican peasant. The bailout doesn't save the poor businessman of Mexico. It saves the international bankers who have invested heavily in Mexico. Who ordered the bailout? Go ahead. Since the president is supposed to act on the will of the American people, and the American people said no, and the Congress said no, who told Clinton you better do it?
Go ahead, Minister. Go ahead.
You know, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told us that the Prime Minister of England may appear to be the leader, but he goes back behind the door to unseen forces that direct his motion. And believe it or not, so it is with the American president. The American people feel that voting for the president is voting for the man who has supreme power to direct the course of this nation for the next 4 years. But there's another power in America called the Federal Reserve that is a power unto themselves. How did the control of the federal banking system come into private control against the wishes of the founding fathers of the nation? And what was written in the Constitution, and what was the purpose of that? Have you noticed how politicians bow to people with money?
Yeah.
Well, what makes you think that your vote counts? It is money that buys political influence and oftentimes political elections. It is money, special interests that dictate in a large measure the vote of politicians in city council, in state legislature, and in the federal government of the United States. It is the big international bankers who are in control of many of the world's governments. But how did this happen to America? The financial woes of this country produce a ripple effect throughout the earth. The financial woes of America are causing the undoing of the social fabric of this nation. The people are grossly dissatisfied with the politics and the politicians of America. The people are wondering how the president and the Congress could loan money to other governments and give money away with the infrastructure of this nation crumbling and the debt is spiraling. How could America give away money when the country is in need? There are millions of homeless people living under bridges. Brothers and sisters, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, in saying that when America went off the gold and silver standard, her financial doom was sealed. This is a very big statement, because the financial doom of a nation brings down its government. When Germany lost the value of the German mark, the government went down right behind it. Whoever and for whatever reason, America was taken away from the gold and silver standard that made her financial doom something that is bound to happen, then those same traitors are responsible for ultimately bringing about the ruin of the government of the United States. Now, let's close. Don't move. Don't move. Did you know that from 1900 to 1913, the federal government had a very manageable debt into the millions of dollars? But in 1913, something happened. 4 things were set up in the year 1913. First, the Federal Reserve Bank, the IRS, the FBI, and the Anti-Defamation League of B'nai B'rith all were set up in the same year. Is that a coincidence? Or is there a tie-in? I don't have time to go into all the details. But by the help of Allah, I'll do that in further writings if it is the will of Allah. But it's enough to say that two German Jews, Paul and Felix Warburg, and the international bankers of Europe wined and dined a senator named Nelson Aldrich, who was the maternal grandfather of Nelson Aldrich Rockefeller. And they wined and dined him for 2 years, showing him the central banks of Europe. Senator Aldrich came back to America and was given the job of being a part of the national study of the national monetary system. Nelson Aldrich with Paul Warburg had a secret meeting in Jekyll Island, Georgia, off the coast of Georgia. And in that secret meeting, what came out of it was the basis of the Federal Reserve Act. They tried to get it through Congress under the name the Aldrich Federal Reserve Act. But since Aldrich was so tied to the international banking system, the members of Congress under the leadership of President Taft, they voted it out. So they went back to the drawing board and they redid it. And they pushed it through on December the 22nd, 1913, just as Congress was about to break for the Christmas recess. Wanting to get home quick, they pushed it through. And the Federal Reserve Act became law. But in 1912, there was a great presidential election where William Taft was challenged in his own party by Teddy Roosevelt. Roosevelt was financed by some of these international bankers. They hated Taft for his derailing of the Aldrich Federal Reserve Act. So they wanted to get at Taft. But they felt that a Republican shouldn't bring this act before Congress. It would be better if it came through a Democrat. So they same bankers put money behind Woodrow Wilson. And Woodrow Wilson sold the American presidency to the international bankers. He was elected in 1912, and in 1913, the Federal Reserve Act became law, and the Central Bank of the United States was taken over by a group of private banking institutions. Then somebody else began printing the money. Like Rothschild said, he don't care who rules as long as he controls the purse strings. In 1913, America was not yet at war. In the last winter solstice of the 6,000-year rule of the enemy, America was betrayed by one of her presidents and one of her senators and one of her members of the United States Treasury. Do you know why I'm teaching this subject on Jesus Saves? Because after I say what I'm saying today, if I ain't got a Savior, I'm sure going to need one after I say what I say today. Let me just finish. Don't be frightened for me. You better be frightened for yourself. Because some stuff is going down in America right now as we speak. That all our lives are in danger right now. And I've got to sound the alarm, brothers and sisters. I don't care nothing about my life. It's your life that I want to save. Listen, now that the bank that prints money is in the hands of private interests, the idea is to push up and inspire the government to borrow. How do you do it? Get America into war. The war in Europe started in 1914. And by 1917, under a lie about the Lusitania being sunk by German subs, the American people were called into a war to end all wars. Oh, this is heavy, man. I mean, you can't believe how wicked, how low down and rotten. Wait a minute. You can't believe how wicked these people are to play games with your lives and the lives of your babies. Create a war just to get more money, to charge more interest, and send your babies to die for bullshit. Excuse me, but bullshit is the dropping of a cow or a bull. It's BS, it's lies, it's deceit. And the American people went to war in 1917, and black people sued to become a part of the war. Because we didn't want to be left out of America, so America signed us up to fight the war. And black men died, but they don't know what the hell they were dying for, and neither did the white ones know what they were dying for. But the man of sin gotta be revealed. And I thank God that he put it in my heart. I don't have no fear of those bastards. I want to expose them all. God is present. God is in the world. And I'm going to prove to you by my life that God has power to save. Don't worry about me. You better worry about yourself. Excuse my language, but they are bastards. They're illegitimate children of God.
Teach to your people, minister.
When America started borrowing money, they had to have a way to pay it back. And that's how they thought of the IRS. Then they started taking income tax. But by that time, the Rockefellers and the Carnegies had their money in trust funds, and they had found a way to get around paying taxes. But the taxes were for the poor and the middle class.
Teach.
It was a gradual income tax that was to keep on escalating. And in the same year, the FBI was established.
Come on, man. Come on.
You think the FBI is out here to fight crime?
Come on, man.
The FBI have done some of the most wicked criminal things in this country against the citizens of America. Who are you, Farrakhan? Go ahead. That you take on the unseen powers of the world to expose them to the light of day. Who are you? I say I'm your brother. I'm a servant of these two mighty men. The FBI has spied on and sought to persecute everybody, white or black, that tampers with control of the poor people.
That's right. That's right.
Whether you're communist, socialist, whether you have an idea that could stimulate the masses with truth, the FBI pounces on you.
Right on top.
In the same year that the FBI was established, the Anti-Defamation League was established. The Anti-Defamation League has been used to cover up and to fight against anybody that is not necessarily anti-Semitic, but anybody who will expose those Jews who have been at the root. When you start opening up the truth, immediately they attack you and call you either a latent anti-Semite or an anti-Semite because they want to stifle you. They'll drive you out of Congress. They'll drive you out of business. They'll drive you out of wherever you are. But I say to the Anti-Defamation League, this is one black man that you ain't gonna drive one damn place. Now, from 1913 to 1995, the debt is nearly $5 trillion. And ask yourself, how did we get into World War II? You say Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. Yes, they did. But what were the forces that created in Japan the desire or the need or forced them to attack America? You don't know that. But when America went to war after the attack on Pearl Harbor, she had to borrow money. There were the international bankers again. They financed all sides. And how many millions of Americans lost their lives? Suppose Hitler was trying to destroy the international bankers' control in Europe. But he went about it by attacking a whole people. All Jews are not responsible for the evil of the few who do the evil. All Muslims are not responsible for the evil of those few Muslims who do evil. All Christians are not responsible for the evil of those who masquerade as Christians. But certain Jews have used Judaism as a shield. The Bible says they say they are Jews, but they are not. And I will make them of the synagogue of Satan. And so, all four of them are lined up against Farrakhan. Go ahead. These are the dogs. Go ahead. Sicked on those who stand up for truth. The IRS probing to see what they can find. The FBI trying to cajole and trap little cheap black criminals in the mosque, sending people in among us to do criminal things. And when they are caught, ask them, we'll lessen your time if you say that Farrakhan told you to do it. The ADL, all of them come out, but here I stand. Getting stronger every day. And so, like Jonah, God has called you to a great work today. God wants you to go to the people of the modern Nineveh and preach. Nineveh was the only wicked city in the Bible that saved herself from destruction and got 200 more years added because she heard the preaching of Jonah. But Jonah didn't want his job. Jonah was running from his mission. Go ahead. And Jonah jumped on board a ship and fell asleep in the hold of the ship, and the ship got troubled. And the captain of the ship said, "Save us." And they found that somebody was in the hold of the ship asleep, and it was Jonah. So when they threw Jonah overboard, the winds got calm. Then Jonah ended up in the belly of a whale. And finally, after he was in the belly of the whale 3 days, he decided, I had enough. I had enough, God. Go ahead. Just let me get out on dry land, and I'll do what you want me to do. I'm asking you, black man, have you had enough? America is troubled today because you're asleep in the bottom of America.
Hey, welcome back to the channel. Now, I'm asking myself, why is the US government, creates war to make money, and it doesn't care about you? It just does care about the money that it gets from you through the taxes, through everything which is happening around you, right? Now, there's a deep dive that I did, and I tried to find out also in the lenses of Minister Louis Farrakhan to try find out why is the US government doing this, because for the longest time, since the year 2010, this is something that has been happening, right? Now, the first thing that I came to see is first the military-industrial complex as one of the things that we want to talk about. Now, the military-industrial complex refers to the relationship between the government, the military, and the private defense contractors. The system thrives on continuous conflict to justify its existence and expansion. Now, what are the key dynamics of this? First is profit dependency. Defense contractors like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and Boeing profit immensely from the government contracts during war. Still under military industrial complex, the second thing is perpetual wartime economy. Since World War II, the U.S. economy has consistently relied on, defense spending, with military budgets increasing even during the peacetime. Right. A lot of money being taken out of this because this is something that has been happening. And if a person like Minister Louis Farrakhan says about this, some people will say that, that is a lie. Oh, he supports white people. Oh, he does all that. But at the end of the day, everything that he says for the good of everyone in the United States, especially speaking much for the black folks in the United States. You know what I'm saying? Now, the second thing as to why the US government creates war to make money is geopolitical and economic donations. Right. The US uses war as a tool to control global resources, secure trade routes, and dominate regions of strategic importance. Wars are often framed as efforts to spread democracy or fight terrorism. By underlying economic motives, one include resource extraction, right? Control over oil in the Middle East, for example, Iraq, and rare minerals in Africa, especially Africa. This Western interference always gets something to take away from Africans, fellow people in Africa that look like you and I, right? The second thing is market creation. Post-war reconstruction projects provide contracts to U.S. companies, opening. Sorry for that. Still under the same point, under geopolitical and economic donation, I'm going to be talking about market creation. Post-war reconstruction projects provide contracts to U.S. companies, opening up new markets for American goods and services. And this is a strategic way as to why still they're taking money out of a lot of people. Now, another thing is justification through fear and propaganda. Right, this is true. Public support for war is manufactured through fear-mongering and propaganda. Examples include the Gulf Tonkin incident, which was used to escalate U.S. involvement in Vietnam. Also, claims of weapon of mass destruction, that's WMDS in Iraq, which were later proven false. I'm also going to be addressing the issue to do with how is this act embedded in the U.S. system, and why does it have to gain from wars, from taxes that people are paying, especially citizens of the United States, right? Now, the U.S. economy is deeply intertwined within the military spending. Like just in the year 2023, defense expenditures exceeded $800 billion, accounting for a significant portion of the federal budget. The spending fueled job creation, of course, for some people, technological innovation, right? Also, another thing is lobbying and political influence. Defense contractors wield significant influence over policymakers through lobbying and campaign donations. For example, companies like Northrop Grumman and General Dynamics contribute millions to political campaigns, ensuring that the legislators prioritize defense spending. Also, revolving doors between Pentagon and private defense companies create conflicts of interest, for military officials often join corporate boards, further entrenching the system. There are a couple of things that really supports the behavior of US, or really proves the behavior of US. First is World War II and the economic boom. Now, the war ended the Great Depression through massive government spending on arms and infrastructure. Post-war, the Marshall Plan facilitated the US economic dominance by reconstructing Europe while trying it to the American markets. Talking about, just a minute. Welcome back a little bit. I'm sorry for the disruption. Now, Farrakhan's philosophical and ideological foundation. It's important we get to look at the philosophical aspect as to why he views this in this way, and it is important for us to, have this discussion. Now, Farrakhan's views on this matter stem from several foundational beliefs. One is critique of capitalism. Farrakhan's critique capitalism as a system that prioritizes profit over human, particularly in its exploitation of resources and people of its global south. War becomes an instrument to secure economic interest, sustain capitalism, and suppress potential threats to the US dominance. Also, he highlights the moral condemnation of imperialism. Farrakhan argues that the US foreign policy is not about protecting democracy or human rights, but about imposing economic and cultural dominance through force. Also, global oppression of black and brown people. Farrakhan highlights how the US-led wars disproportionately target resource-rich regions inhabited by non-white population, perpetuating a global system of racial and economic oppression. Right? Now, looking at the same things that I've talked about, and the role of military-industrial complex, all these have one character, which one is economic profiteering. This is something that has been really happening, and that gives you an example of companies like Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and this is how they have benefited all from this. Look at the Vietnam War, look at the Iraq War, look at the Afghanistan War. Like the Iraq War, which happened the year 2003, the Afghanistan War, which happened between the year 2001 to 2021. Right? Now, you need to realize that the economic system of the United States is rooted through war. And this is justified by what Minister Louis Farrakhan says about this. Right? Now, how does the US perpetuate hegemony? The military hegemony, right? The US maintains over 750 military bases worldwide, enabling it to perpetuate power globally. The military presence, 1, enforces economic policies favorable to US corporations. 2, discouraging rival powers like China and Russia from challenging US dominance. What is the economic hegemony? Wars and intervention often secure US control over global finances and trade systems. Dollar dominance for the longest time. And I thank BRICS for, waking up to make sure that they are also having the currencies, that they don't have economic dominance like for the longest time the way US have tried. And I know even the new president who is being chosen will try to, make it still work. But I think at this point it is time that they realize that it's losing its, purchasing power, right? The US ensures that the dollar remains the global reserve currency, granting it unparalleled economic leverage. Also, resources exploitation. Control over rich oil regions like the Middle East ensures cheap energy for the US economy and leverage over global markets. Now, historical pattern of US oligarchy and war. Elite control. Farrakhan views the US as an oligarchy, where the wealthy elite manipulate politics and foreign policy for their benefit. These are the evidences. Lobbying and campaign financing. Defense contractors and oil companies influence legislation, prioritize their interests. Revolving doors. High-ranking government officials often transition to lucrative positions in private sector, particularly in defense and energy industries. There are wars for corporate gain. Farrakhan points to historical examples where corporations directly benefited from war. United Fruit Company in Guatemala, the CIA orchestrated a coup in 1954 to protect the interest of the US corporation. Also, Ali Barton in Iraq, Vice President Dick Cheney's ties to Ali Barton underscores how corporate interests shape war policies. Now, marginalization of the global south. Farrakhan argues that the US was often targeting non-white nations, perpetuating a global racial hierarchy. Resource extraction, Africa, the Middle East, these are frequent targets for wealth, oil, minerals, and other resources. Talk about neocolonialism. US intervention often leaves nations destabilized and dependent on American aid and cooperation. The moral and social critique. This is what Mr. Louis Farrakhan offers. Farrakhan critiques is not purely economic, but deeply moral. He condemns the loss of human life and the exploitation of resources for the benefit of a few. He views these wars as manifestation of spiritual and moral decay in the US society, prioritizing greed over humanity. And this has big impact on black and brown people all over the world. Culture violence, right? Because of militarism, which reflects and reinforces violence and inequality within the US. These are presented Jindok stories. I know it was a long video, a little bit longer video, but I hope that it serves you how it is supposed to serve you. As you know, these are presented Jindok stories, and let me see you on my next video. Until then, peace, love, and harmony. Salute.